some manufacturers would call it a rubber stamp. Pay the money, we'll ask you a few questions, take a picture of some equipment, and congratulations, you're certified.
You're certified.
Put the plaque up
You're
there.
the shop, right?
Yeah, you're the shop.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Airing of Grievances. I'm Eric Reamer, and that's Robert Grieve, and we are so thankful that you've taken time out of your day to join us for ours. And if you're new here, welcome. We like to do this every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. here in the Mountain Standard Time, and our videos are consumer-focused, but have interest across the entire industry of the collision industry as well. And if you're one of our old-time regulars, we love chatting with you guys and talking through the comments. And like Saturday morning, if you're watching while we're watching it, the very first one, do that, and we will join you and chat with you. All right, Rob, happy Saturday to you.
Happy Saturday to you, my dear friends. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Another time around the sun. It's good to be alive.
There you go. There you go.
All right, so we want to talk a little bit about body shops. And you have a very poignant message for our audience.
We've said it many times, and just sum it up, not all shops are created equal. And the varying degrees of what they have to repair your car, whether we're talking about people, equipment, whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
it's all over the board.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just break down a few of those things.
Sure.
So that you, the guest, the vehicle owners, have a sense of where you're going.
Yeah, and therein lies the real issue is, if you don't know the things that we're about to share with you, then you could very well walk into a shop under a banner of assumptions that may not be as equal as you imagine.
You
they
bring
might
your
be.
car to get repaired, you expect it's going to be repaired and it's going to be perfect.
Right.
That's not always the case.
I think we have 111 episodes to this series that demonstrates that that's not always the case. 2 different degrees, per episode. But let's talk a little bit about one of the things that you think makes a difference.
All right. Well, let's just start with you have a 50-50 decision to make right up front, and that is to go with one of the preferred body shops from your insurance company.
Yeah.
Or not.
Right.
So let's attack it from this angle.
Okay.
I was out in California recently, not staying at the hotel where the conference was taking place.
Okay.
So I had to Uber back and forth or Lyft back and forth.
Sure.
I use Lyft myself, but
Okay.
every time I hit the button to say, hey, I need to go to this hotel, I get presented with options.
Sure.
You got the cheapest option, which you don't have any idea what's going to arrive.
That's true. That's true. It's kind of a gamble.
Some of them you have an option that you can get, they'll get there faster.
Yeah.
You're going to pay a little more for that.
Right.
There's an option for their, membership, best value type thing.
Right.
There's and if you want a bigger vehicle, if you want a luxury vehicle,
Right.
it's giving you all these options.
Right. Sure.
And by the way, each one of these options is priced differently.
Yes, they are.
And
Yeah, they are.
I'm tired. I've done presentations all day long, been in meetings, one right after the next. So I want to go back to my hotel. I want to know I'm going to be comfortable.
Right.
So I hit the XL,
Right.
and I know I'm going to get a nice big vehicle that I can sit in the back and just relax and
Right.
drive home.
And chances are with those...
And I pay more for it.
You pay a little more for it, but the fact of the matter is when you click that button, you're going to get a car. The driver has been held to a higher standard, right? Their car has to be held to a higher standard. And you...
It gives me a little peace of mind not worrying about what is going to drive up.
That's it right
Because if you go to the airport and decide to go to the taxi stand, you couldn't find a worse piece of crap car to go where you need to go to than at the taxi stand.
You're
and
not
those
wrong.
cars also drive for Lyft and Uber.
They can, yeah.
In some cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
No, I think you've made a good point there, and what you really mentioned, and I want to drive home, is that it's peace of mind.
it's peace of mind. It's you have an expectation, and if you put that little bit of extra money in it, your expectation is much greater chance of it being exceeded, actually.
Yes. So, that's a great story about your Uber Lyft experience.
Yep. Well, it's the same thing when you go to get your car repaired. Now, insurers, they want to try and standardize everything for their benefit because it makes it nice and clean for them if they just pay everybody the same amount.
Sure.
And, you know, for example, we're equipped, and I hate to use the word state-of-the-art because you see that on everybody's website and they're using equipment from the 80s.
Well, tell us what it means to you. Because you're going to refer to the machine back behind my shoulder here, right?
Well, the spray booths, the money, that's $250,000 in those two spray booths.
Sure.
So what does that mean for the consumer
Right.
that I have those?
Yeah.
The finish gets baked on similar to the factory when your vehicle was made.
Okay.
It's not to the heat that it was then, because when the car is painted in the factory, there's nothing in the car.
Right.
So when they bake it on, it's a much higher temperature than what we can bake on, otherwise your whole interior would melt.
We exchange temperature for time.
Right. But I have energy efficient booths that save on electricity and natural resources. And
Well, answer this. Does Joey Bag of Donuts Backyard Barbecue and Body Shop have the same equipment?
they may not have any.
What?
I know of a shop that I drive by every day that they don't have any booth. They have a fan in the ceiling that sucks fumes out, and the same area that they repair the cars in is the same area they paint the cars in. So, but the insurance company wants to say, we're going to give you all the same amount of money. So the point is, not all collision centers are created equal.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the differences.
All right.
We talked about some of the tools, the booths. We have frame machines, and those machines are not only meant for pulling and aligning frames, which is happening less and less, by the way, because the manufacturers are making the frame rails and unibodies out of different types of metal that, like ultra-high strength steel, you don't pull that, you replace it.
Once they're compromised, they're done.
Some of them are, have aluminum forged components on it. You don't pull those.
Okay.
But you still use the frame machine to set the vehicle up and measure it.
That sometimes is a sore subject because the insurers don't necessarily always want to pay for that.
That's correct, because they don't feel it's necessary, even though they're looking at pictures and not the car. And by the way, I'd love to see their credentials.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for us, we're using it to measure more than we're using it to pull frames.
Yeah.
I have 3. That moves the car through the system faster because you don't have to wait for a frame machine to be available.
Right.
Some places don't have a frame machine at all. Some places have these 1980 frame machines
Yeah.
that are meant for full and truck frames and no measuring system.
Wow.
So, again, those are some of the differences.
Let me ask you another question. Welders. How many welders do you have?
3 or 4 different, well, 5, because
Isn't welding?
no, and the machines can be different requirements from the manufacturers of the vehicles. The gases can be different depending on what it is you're welding on. Welding wire that is used. Some manufacturers produce their own. They want you to buy it from them, so there's an actual part number. Others you can use, kind of like generic.
Yeah.
But they're different sizes and different tensile strengths.
You do a lot of post-repair inspections, and that's simply after somebody else has fixed the car. They sometimes bring it to us and say, "Hey, did I get a good job or not?"
Yeah, can you look it over?
Right? When you do a post-repair inspection, have you ever seen somebody use the incorrect welding
Every time.
procedure or equipment?
Almost every time. Almost every time.
So that actually happens in the real world.
Yes, it does. It happens in the real world today.
Okay. I think we've established the equipment is one of the differentiators.
Yeah. So the other thing way you can make your decision is by if they have certifications.
They have.
The shop.
The shop has certifications.
If the shop has a plaque on the wall that says, "Hey, I'm Chrysler Fiat certified,"
Okay.
or "I'm Honda Acura," or "I'm,"
I get
for
it.
us it's Lexus authorized
Yes.
and Lucid authorized.
Right.
Again, as much as that's meant to kind of standardize the repair process for your specific vehicle type,
Right.
each manufacturer's certification process is also not created equal. So some manufacturers, we call it a rubber stamp. Pay the money, we'll ask you a few questions, take a picture of some equipment, and congratulations, you're certified.
You're certified.
Put the plaque up
You're
there.
the shop, right?
Yeah, you're the shop.
Well, and
We don't have any of those certifications.
no, we do not. No, we earned.
Yeah, and
every
they don't really do
certification.
anything for you because, they just don't.
Well, and there's another level of compromise that could take place, and we've seen this. We've talked about it a little bit from time to time. When somebody gets a certification from an OEM, but they are also in partnership, a direct repair partnership with the insurer.
Yeah.
And those two are categorically at odds with one another.
Yeah.
And who wins? Well, the one that feeds the money typically is the one that gets the most
Right.
preference, and that's not always best for you.
No, if you go to a certified shop that's also on the insurance company program, avoid that shop.
Yeah, get in your car.
Yeah.
Ask the tow truck to take you somewhere else.
Yeah. Yep. Because those two things don't work together, and it's always you, the consumer, that takes the beating.
That's right. That's right.
You need somebody looking out for you.
Yeah.
So while some certifications are rubber stamped and more, and this is just my opinion,
Sure.
purchased rather than necessarily earned,
Right.
there are programs that the manufacturer is incredibly interested in the guest experience, training requirements, documentation in the file of the actual repair,
Yeah.
documentation of your processes of how the car is going to go through the system,
Right.
and the parts usage, and they want to know all of that.
You bet.
And some of these certifications, they come in and they audit you, and they audit the files, and they audit cars that are being repaired, and they audit cars that have already been repaired, and cars that are coming in for repairs, and want to see the approach that's going to be taken and the paperwork supporting it, all the rest of that.
Sure. Sure.
So I recommend going to a certified, because it's a better bet, and you still have the manufacturer's badge attached to it.
Right.
So if you have a problem, you can reach out to the manufacturer and say, "Hey, I went to your certified place and this is what they did to my car."
Gotcha.
Nobody wants that either.
Of course. Talk about training.
Training.
Yeah.
Let's talk about training. I don't know how many shops out there spend a lot of money on training. And then training is, what's the value in training? You're always going to learn something.
Sure.
But what's the source of that you're getting the training from?
Okay.
Is it generic training, or is it advanced manufacturer training to fix your specific car?
Okay.
And we go. Last week, I lost a guy for a whole week at Lexus training, learning how to do different calibrations and understanding the driver assist functions and what could be compromised and what has to be known.
And in that process,
by the way, most shops don't have a guy like that.
Right.
But I should work for the same amount
as the guy who doesn't have that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that when we talk about training, we consider it. Some shops might consider that an expense. We consider that an investment,
an incredible value,
right?
Especially to you, the guest. But for me, also, it gives me peace of mind that we're repairing these vehicles and doing it right.
Yeah.
And I love learning.
Yeah.
I love to have my people learning. We spent $40,000 last year in training people here, and I don't think it's so bashful if you're, at a shop asking, "Hey, what's your training budget? How well trained are these people?" Because everybody says on the website they're advanced trained, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dig a little deeper.
Easy to type those words, but to back them up. And I think, you mentioned the number 40,000, which is an interesting number because there's, last I checked, according to the Crash Network, there's about 40,000 shops in the United States of America.
That's correct, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about those training courses. In the classes that are offered for the specific tools or vehicles or manufacturers, there should be 40,000 people in every session of these classes, right? 40,000? 4,000?
No, they're not.
400?
I have seen, again, because I do speak at a couple of conferences around the nation, the need and want and desire for information and training is growing. The classrooms are packed.
I agree with that, and that's in large part in response to the fact that the technology is advancing in such exponential rates. I guess my point to the question is, if there are 40,000 shops and everybody had one guy like that going to the training, there should be 40,000 people trained a year in whatever the training is.
Yeah, it's hundreds.
But it's hundreds. And so we're not talking about 10%, we're not talking about 1%, we're talking about 1/10 of 1%.
Right. And that's just for one manufacturer. We have two manufacturers that we do business with. While one guy's in Texas doing Lexus stuff, another guy's in San Francisco doing Lucid stuff.
Yep.
And then there's other requirements that we have for other training.
Yeah, you train your painters.
Everybody.
And send them to training, right?
Yes.
To Toyota and Lexus training. You send your technicians to training. You send the guy who plugs in the computer to make sure he understands the analytics of what's going on in the machine. All of that. And I think that is a level of commitment that ought to be considered. It's like going back to full circle when we're talking about Lyft or Uber. You're pushing the XL button because you're going to get a nice ride that's going to be a consistent thing, and it's going to show up on time, and it's going to be clean, and you don't have to fight for a place or hold your luggage on your lap, all of which happens every day in the world of cheapest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, and I want to take just a second and congratulate those shops. And I know many, many, many shops that put a lot of effort into the training and the value that they provide you as a consumer fixing your car properly.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do today. It is not. There's every roadblock between parts and insurers that don't want to pay and all the rest of that. The time it takes to get through the system.
Yep.
If you're going to push the cheapest thing on the Lyft thing, then you probably don't care about how your car is getting repaired, and maybe you just go with the list that the insurance company, because if you don't go, there's a chance it's gonna cost more than what the insurance company is willing to pay. You need to be aware of that. But there's a bigger value, much more than the extra money.
Look, when I go to the grocery store, I don't buy the generic everything. Sometimes I do, but not always. And when you do, you get what you pay for. And when you purchase something that is not generic, you also get what you pay for.
Yep.
So that's good stuff.
But anyway, I congratulate the shops out there doing it right. And I know a lot of you, and thank you for what you do. It's important for all of our guests. We need you safe on the road, because it's not only you and your passengers, it's the people traveling next to you, in front of you, and behind you.
Yeah. If you're a consumer and you're not here in the Denver metro area and you are wondering, where do I go if I've got, I don't know how to ask the right questions, well, we're trying to educate you through these videos, but you can always pick up the phone and call this number right here. And if you do, Rob will talk to you and he'll give you the names of some of the owners of those shops around the country.
Yep.
And if he can't, he knows somebody who can. All right?
So that's it.
Rob, thank you. Thank you.
Happy Saturday to you.
I hope it's valuable to you.
My dear friends, God bless. I'll see you next week.